So I think fundamentally one thing is that D2C proposition should be differentiated versus say your marketplace proposition, right? So what is the reason for D2C to exist? If it is I'm selling the same product on D2C and same on Amazon, so why should a consumer, think from a consumer standpoint, why should a consumer buy from D2C? So actually I started post my graduation in Merchant Navy. So I worked as a marine engineer 4 years, went to the same B school, IIM Calcutta. Post MBA joined Procter & Gamble, worked across countries, actually almost all of Asia. So initial 3.5 years in India, working on a detergent brand Tide. Then went to Singapore, working Southeast Asia, fabric care, hair care. Then I spent 3 years in China. So learned a lot. So China, I say, is a time machine. What happens in China happens in the world maybe 3-4 years later. And then came back to India to launch Uniqlo in India, where I headed marketing and e-commerce. And after spending 2.5 years, the whole bug of I'm getting too comfortable in MNCs. So I joined a startup at Kapiva. So Kapiva, I'm heading marketing product. Actually, while I'm operations is in my designation, but I don't handle operation and everything else. So I handle marketing, product, international expansion, offline sales, a bunch of other things. So I think that's in short about me. Lovely to talk to you guys today here. So hopefully.
Super. Let's zoom into your life at Kapiva, how it started, and what was the point of the stage of Kapiva when they could bring in somebody like you to run the show.
Yeah. So I think, and I would give it to the founders, right? So without sounding arrogant, so uh, when this whole interaction started with Kapiva, at the stage of the company, where I was in terms of comp and all that, I may have been too expensive for them, right? But it's a strategic choice for a brand whether what part of the business they want to invest. Do they want to invest in people? Do they want to invest in supply chain, manufacturing, and all? And one of the big costs for Kapiva is actually the people, right? And while I took a big hit and they stretched themselves, and we met somewhere in between, right? Because I also wanted to do that role. So that's how we met. Because even when I was leaving or trying to leave PNG, I that time was pondering of creating my own startup, and I could not, because when Uniqlo happened, one of the people whom I knew at Uniqlo, the global CMO, he said Uniqlo is like a startup without risk of your money, so why don't you go and start Uniqlo? So that happened, but that bug obviously happened, and I wanted to go join Kapiva. So that's where it meeting of minds and all that. So we liked each other, and that's how Kapiva happened. Yeah.
Sure. So that's how you entered. And what was your first, let's say, few months at Kapiva like?
So I think it's very, very interesting. So I would say I have never loved a job as much as at Kapiva, because the whole, in a startup environment, the whole flexibility to do what you want to do. And again, I would give it to the founders, where they gave that freedom to think, execute, implement some of the decisions which I took could have been very risky for the company. So I think that personally for me, it's been phenomenal. The company, I have joined about 13-14 months back, Kapiva. So company has doubled its business from that standpoint. What they were, or what I would say, Kapiva was very strong and solid in terms of the products that Kapiva has. It had a very loyal customer base. Amiv comes from a 100-year Baidyanath background, so is the founder. So that part was really sorted. So supply chain, product, very strong. He had already started building, and just he got me to get the brand part sorted, but he had got the chief growth officer from Myntra. So, and again, for a startup of that scale, getting somebody who heads growth at Myntra was a big decision, and I'm sure very similar process he went through. So the team was very, very strong, right? So, and that's where it's showing now in the results that business is growing decently fast. So 2x, not as aggressive as some of the other brands, but the good part is while the growth is sustaining, there is a very close eye on profitability, right? So we don't take our eyes on profitability. And actually, that's what
Which
the
interaction. Which is the reason why I thought he's a perfect guy to talk about it, because the trouble with this, taking your eyes off profitability is where you'll end up being dependent on funding cycles. Winters are here already, And if this is the time when you can sail through with a certain level of moderate growth, most people won't make it out of this cycle, right? They'll run out of the money. And that's what I'd love to zoom into. So you mentioned the bunch of so-called risky decisions during that cycle. So what were those risky decisions, if whatever you're at liberty to share?
Sure.
Because the way you seem to be positioned in the company, a lot of this is kind of representing the founder's decision making. So that's the reason why, while you're technically not the founder, but you're pretty much as empowered and in the position to take those stances. And we'd love to understand how you took those decisions, why you took those decisions, and what were the outcomes and what were the wins that came out of those risky choices.
Sure. So, like for example, the way Kapiva earlier used to look at products, Kapiva was very big in juices, Ayurvedic juices. So, amla, aloe vera. And the way we used to innovate earlier was so, okay, we have amla and aloe vera, let's combine and create another juice, aloe amla juice, right? So, and we kept on creating it. Now, the whole thing of principally how we should look at portfolio uh, by form. So that was the original version of what Kapiva was. So we used to look at, oh, we have juices, then we have powders, and then we may have gummies. But the whole change in thinking of, no, we should not look at forms, but look at from a consumer problem solution standpoint, right? So there may be diabetic consumer, there may be digestion consumers, there may be weight loss consumers, there may be skincare consumers, and then what is the right form to present to them, right? Now, just changing this lens meant that many products or many new opportunities will emerge. So for example, if you think, okay, there is a diabetic consumer, what all I can do to solve diabetes problem from an Ayurveda. So Kapiva is an Ayurvedic brand, right? So what all innovations I can do, and that just opens up a lot more, unlocks a lot more opportunities, right? But also, if you put products in this lens, there may be a lot of decent sized products which may become redundant. Oh, there is a lot of overlap. Oh, there are two products which are trying to solve the same problem, right? So that's, I believe, is a big decision, right? Then whole investment on the brand campaign. So there was a big debate on the brand campaign should be for the whole brand. So the whole messaging is, oh, Kapiva is a great Ayurvedic company, obviously in a more nuanced way. Or we just pick one product and communicate big on that single product, right? So, and again, that was a big decision because brand campaigns take a lot of money, right? And it's just one asset which you take 6 months, 5 months to create, and if it's dud, right? Your money's gone. So I think just two examples of those decisions.
Sure. So there's a shift on the product portfolio side, and this would have to do with the catalog creation when you're talking about a customer persona and trying to solve problems for this guy would automatically lean into repeats and lifetime value and subscription-based models and all of that. Was that
Absolutely
the driver for this decision making, or that's a side consequence?
I would say side consequence, but and I think that's the beauty of looking at from a consumer lens, right? So again, just going back to that same diabetes example, right? So if you are able to recruit a diabetes consumer with the product, right? So I may have a dia-free juice which I advertise and recruit that consumer. Now there is so much upselling, cross-selling opportunities that automatically emerge, right? And which for a D2C brand is lifeblood, right? So I may be able to, okay, if he's taking diabetes juice, is there an opportunity of morning detox green tea, right, for him, right? There may be an opportunity because he's a diabetic consumer, and I know that 50% of my diabetic consumers are also overweight, right? So there may be another opportunity for another product because everything is being seen from a consumer lens, right? And that's where the whole LTV math starts to fall in place, right? Because LTV on its own, while LTV is a critical end goal, but to reach that end goal, unless the whole thought process as a consumer filter, it will falter, right?
So which is precisely where we've had this conversation on multiple forums as to at what point do you start thinking about retention and lifetime value. Now in this case, this is pretty much pre-product launch, so to speak. When we were talking about this product category for diabetics, you're already thinking it from a consumer lens and what can I upsell and what can I cross-sell. Because if you have a reasonable window and visibility to that, your ability to acquire that customer for maybe slightly more money might also be higher. Right? In a lot of D2C brands, otherwise, if you don't see that, okay, if I've acquired this customer or recruited this customer, as he said, with this particular product, what is the next item he's going to purchase? If that's not sufficiently clear, you will probably try and experiment a variety of things, and it may or may not work out. But if it's well thought through as to what the customer life cycle through your brand is going to be like, it might just reap very substantial rewards in terms of the actual off-take of the subsequent categories, and you start to dominate that particular space. So with this diabetic play, now in the face of a lot of competition, and I'll jump straight to the most common topic most people tend to worry about, customer acquisition cost, and you related it to the lifetime value side of things.
Yeah.
Is this already a mess, or is there like a dominant play that you have, and how's it playing out?
Yeah, so I think CAC is a challenge for anybody who is playing in the D2C world, right? So maybe not for you, I don't know, but for most of the folks, CAC is absolute challenge. And I'll relook at my playbook after talking to you. But so I think fundamentally, and barring you as an exception, but fundamentally, because of so many brands and by virtue of maybe VC money entered, so Facebook, Google cost earned, which are the primary channels of acquisition, right? So those costs of acquiring customers are going up, right? Now, and I think that's true across the world, and US and Europe, a lot of those guys have found ways to circumvent it by subscription models, right? But subscription model in India, at least, I haven't seen much traction or working, right? So then how do you make sense of that CAC? Because the CACs are very high and ultimately you need to make profitable, right? So I think there are 2 or 3 levers which we have tried, and we are also learning on the way, right? So I think fundamentally one thing is that D2C proposition should be differentiated versus say your marketplace proposition, right? So what is the reason for D2C to exist? If it is I'm selling the same product on D2C and same on Amazon, so why should a consumer, think from a consumer standpoint, why should a consumer buy from D2C, right? Because obviously Amazon delivery will be faster, more reliable, right? So everything is good in Amazon, then why should I go to a brand's website to buy that product, right? I think that part of the proposition needs to be very clear and very differentiated. Otherwise, we better don't have D2C, right?
This is an interesting point. Can you elaborate on this? What
Sure.
is your differentiation there?
Sure. So, and I can go to other examples of some of the other brands, what they
Sure.
have done and what we have tried to do. So, actually, this realization is also for us maybe 6-7 months back, that we are trying to sell the same products on Amazon or whatever, Flipkart, and on D2C.
But that's
And
the reality of a majority of brands I've met so far.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's why the example is
so,
useful.
Then we said, okay, what additional can D2C offer, which the marketplaces cannot offer, right? So one part is the whole product discovery, right? So discovery in our case is consumer, we have a bunch of products, maybe more than 100 SKUs. So consumer doesn't necessarily know what she wants or what product she wants. So she obviously knows what she wants, but she doesn't know what product she wants. But she knows that I have this problem, right? So you can go and there is a bot and all that. You can answer questions. You can talk to tele sales or whatever health experts, right? Tell the issues that you are facing, answer 10 questions, and you can check on kapiva.in website, answer a bunch of questions, and you will be recommended the right regimen. So hypothetically, or not hypothetically, actually example. So for example, you are suffering from acne, right? Now on Amazon, if you go, you will find an acne product, acne face wash or whatever. You know the product, you buy it, right? But if you come to Kapiva website and you suffer from acne and you answer a bunch of questions, we will ask you, okay, is your digestion okay? Is your sleep okay? And all that. And maybe because fundamentally acne may be caused in 60-70% of the cases because your digestion is not proper, right? So we may give you an acne product, but along with a digestion product, right? So that's one of discovering the right product for you, which differentiates, which you cannot get in marketplaces, right? So I think that's the part of till the purchase part of it, right? Post-purchase, now this is a very recent, actually a 2-month-old program, but that also came consciously on how do we differentiate ourselves versus say Amazon. Is we said, okay, we are not, or we don't want to be, we don't want to be in the business of selling products, right? We want to think ourselves as we solve consumers' problem, right? So if you have acne, we don't sell acne face wash, but we will solve acne problem. If you have hair fall, we will not sell a hair fall product, but we will solve your hair fall. And those problems may be caused by a bunch of issues, right? And our products may be one part of the solution, but not the complete solution. Because if you're not sleeping well, if you're not drinking enough water, if you are not exercising good enough, if you are not eating the right food, you are eating a lot of junk and all that, right? Or right nutrients are not present in your diet, you can't solve it even if you have the best products, right? So hence we created what we call a 4 balance program, where any product that you purchase from the D2C website, a journey of this 4 balance, which is the 4 components of diet, lifestyle, nutrition, etc., kicks in, right? And that's where a lot of this CRM in the traditional sense that gets started. And we have a complete, okay, on X day, emailer will go to you. On Y day, a WhatsApp message will go to you. On Z day, a call will come from you. Okay, are you facing any issues with the product and all that? And reminder, okay, are you doing these things, right? And by doing that, what we try to ensure, one is the consumer feels good, okay, somebody is caring for me. Second is the results for the consumer are better, because now there is somebody reminding, oh, you need to do these ABC things to get rid of what you came to us for. Right. So that's where a very differentiated D2C proposition emerges versus, say, what you buy on Amazon. You can top up your product. If you know I want this product, you go and buy that product.
Which would automatically mean that the problem is actually getting solved because of those behavioral changes driven by you. His impression of Kapiva would be better, and he'll likely be
higher repeat. So advocate, higher repeat. Because I'm connecting him so often, I can upsell, cross-sell more products.
Sure.
So all that journey kicks in.
So in your case, I mean, there's clearly an emphasis on doing a much better play on D2C than anywhere else. So let the marketplace be discovery or whatever. But eventually you're clear you want to be D2C. Absolutely. But this is in contrast to a lot of other businesses where discovery as well as transaction consumption happens on marketplaces itself. So would you say there is a strategic, and the way I see it is there is a strategic difference in terms of how D2C will play out for you? So from a founder's perspective, in their early days, and I would be curious about what stage of your business did you choose this whole path, that D2C needs to take more mental bandwidth than marketplaces? Because for a lot of us, and I would love to see a show of hands where a dominant share of your volume or value comes from a marketplace. Is that true for a lot of people?
And it's still true for us, though.
Okay, sure.
But that's changing, yeah. So
from a brand's life cycle perspective, and at what stage do you make this shift, and how do you deploy, let's say, different resources towards these things? At some level, you would have invested in teams to run marketplaces, teams to run D2C, and that energy shift or allocation of investment shift. How does this pan out?
So it's not कि हम पैदा ही हुए थे सब knowledge के साथ.
Of course, right? So obviously. No, but I'm hoping that basis your learnings, people can accelerate the decision making.
So I think fundamentally what we have realized, we can't sell the same product across D2C and Amazon, and that's a realization.
So was from a life journey perspective.
So I think Kapiva in the current form is maybe 3.5 years old, right? So while the company is 6 years old, but it was a very different business model, offline clinics and all, right? So the current business model is, or D2C online e-commerce model is 3.5 years old roughly. This whole thing realization came in maybe 8 months back. Right, that we need to have a very different.
This is 5 months of you coming into the system.
I will not say I am
not the exact, but still some degree of relationship.
So that's happened 8 months back, and the implementation is still happening, right? So
but conceptually, this would make sense to do it pretty much upfront.
Absolutely. Now, because I think in principle, D2C and marketplace cannot sell the same proposition, same product. Or think from a consumer standpoint. Why would a consumer buy from D2C?
In fact, that's a real problem I see from a lot of companies we speak to. The consumer checks you out on your website probably, but then he goes back to Amazon and buys it because he just likes the reliability of that experience.
And I'm sure there would be a lot of mechanical, and which even we do, right? So you would do coupons and all that on your D2C ecosystem, right? So which is bread and butter, and we do as well. But apart from those mechanical, which are really expensive mechanisms, thinking from a consumer standpoint and keeping aside we have to give consumer some bribe to get her, right? What is it for the consumer to come to your D2C website?
Now tell me something, a few things regarding this whole sustainability play itself. You would have also built teams once you've joined as well.
Sorry, you asked me. Anyways, you come to
the point would come to... So the previous question in terms of allocation with life stage, I think let's complete that first.
Sure. Yeah, so I would say while the revenue may be marketplace heavy still, okay, so that gap is diminishing, but revenue is still marketplace heavy. The team is skewed towards D2C, right? And again, that's a strategic call from our side that we want to invest in growing our D2C business, right? Because hopefully we feel that we have partly cracked it and will get better on D2C eventually. So the team may be 70% or well, apart from all the other functions and all that. So 1:2 in terms of marketplace team and D2C team, but the business may be 2:3 in terms of D2C and marketplace.
Sure. So that's a choice made in the last 8 months, and that's where the
Absolutely.
investments
Yeah,
are going.
yeah.
Now, the other side, and given that it's a competitive ecosystem, the teams that you probably bring in
Yeah.
would have other options and other choices to be made as well, and probably people paying higher.
Yeah.
And you have a DNA of keeping the profits in mind, which means you'll probably not 2x or 3x salaries when people are joining. So, how do you build this team and how do you create this DNA of a very frugal, cost conscious, mindful approach in building this up?
Yeah, so I think I would divide. So while team is still a big part of the cost, right? And we may be, I don't have many other benchmarks, but based on what I hear, people cost as a percentage of total revenue, we may be among the top quartile or whatever, right?
Are you able to put a number to it?
No,
Just
I
for this
can't.
benchmarking purpose.
No, but I think that's not relevant. But we
Okay.
are among the higher in terms of people cost, right? And that's where the whole discussion was on CM2, not on necessarily on
Sure.
EBITDA.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right. So because the people number won't increase with the increase in
Scale of the
business,
business, of course.
right? So last 1 year the business may have grown 2x, but people cost may have grown by 10-20% at best, right? So that's a fixed cost in a way, right? And that's an investment.
And that's because you already invested meaningfully before this year in some sense.
Exactly, right. So at least from a leadership standpoint and all, we don't see any need to hire any more people, right? So both quality and quantity, we feel pretty good about the team part of the cost, right? But what we are very conscious of is we will not burn money to acquire customers, right? And that's where when we last had a chat, right? So we celebrated becoming CM2 positive, right? So which essentially is the cost of acquiring consumer or whatever that is sustainable. That part is profitable, right? Now we still burn money because there is a money for office cost and team, which is the fixed part of the cost. But if we continue to grow, maybe another 1 year at this level, we'll be absolute profitable, right? So yeah.
Fair. So the next question would be about the DNA of the team. How do you make sure that this thought process of you remaining profitable or being cost conscious is also translated across various parts of the team? Because it's not like you're short of money.
Yeah.
You have money available, but you don't want to deploy it inefficiently. So how do you keep that frugality in the system?
Yeah.
Is there a lot of approval processes involved, or are you able to pass judgment to people who are then able to utilize their own sensibility?
Yeah, so we're still a startup, so I don't think there are so many layers of approval and all, so that doesn't come in the picture. But constant tracking of key metrics, right? So, and we have hundreds of charts, and this month, what is the cost of acquisition, which cohort, which product, is it CAC by LTV CM2 positive, right, to that level. So that we tracked, and whichever cohort, because CAC by LTV CM2 positive, that means ultimately that part of the business is making money. You double down on that part of the business and grow. And which is not, then you keep on working. Okay, the creative is not working. Is the media planning not working? Right. So you try to fix that, and that's how it goes.
So it's more like institutionalized that these benchmarks have to be in this fashion, and that's how the teams now know how to make those judgments.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fair enough. Would love to understand the big differences in the major phases of the journey, where you say, you probably didn't enter 0 to 1, but let's say 1 to 10, as in your terms, probably would be, let's say, the journey from 10 to 50 crores ARR or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the next phase of, an orbital change.
Yeah.
So what changes at each of these levels in your perspective?
Mm-hmm. I think the whole, and I'm thinking loud, right? So, one part, I think, in terms of the working of the team, how many processes that you set up which kind of automate decision making, that changes, right? Now, I was very conscious because I came from MNCs and all, where one of the reasons I quit them, because that's so much bureaucratic, right? So many layers and everything to move. It's not easy to move, right? startups have that flexibility, and I was very conscious that if I bring my experience in terms of, okay, there needs to be a weekly this meeting, and you need to send a pre-read before this meeting and all that. Now, while it may have its advantages, but does it curtail the agility of the team, right? Now that kind of changes, because you need to in a startup, while the founder has a visibility to everything, and it's a maybe say 0 to 1 journey, the founder himself can monitor everything what is happening around, right? But he needs to start delegating things as things become bigger, and I think that's where the whole setting up process, systems, institutionalizing, while not losing the edge on agility, right? So I think that's the key factor, because that's what innovation agility is. Quick learning is advantage of a startup versus say other big companies, and if you lose that early, then obviously you grow like 10-20% like Dabur and PNG and all that, right? So I think that you shouldn't lose. So I think that's one piece that changes from 0 to 1 and 1 to 10, or 10 to 100 maybe. The other piece I think is the whole thinking in terms of, are we creating a brand, right? And now, not necessarily every company needs to create a brand. Some may sell a product, but product get commoditized or copied very soon. So you need to start thinking on, are you building a brand, right? And are you investing behind building a brand, right? Is consumer or are your images and impression in the consumer's mind cohesive enough to reflect a single identity, right? So I think those are the things which you start, and I think that's where the manifestation happens in, you may be communicating 10 SKUs, but is there a cohesive theme across those 10 SKUs, right? You may be communicating at 10 touch points, including say packaging and Facebook and Google and all that, but is there a cohesive theme visually, emotionally, whatever, across all those touch points, right? So essentially, are you starting to think as a brand from that standpoint? I think that's,
Would this be substantially inspired by your time at PNG? Thinking as a brand?
Yeah, this would.
And you would imagine that this is pretty much something to be anal about early in your journey, to make sure that your brand is, if you want to build a brand, that is.
I think that's the right stage, maybe around 20, 30 crore or maybe 50 crore ARR.
Huh.
That's the time you need to become. Otherwise, you will make decisions which spread you in directions where it may be hard to bring it back.
No, but so you're saying that it's okay to postpone this decision to that
It's
point?
okay to postpone. I think first part of the
often,
journey is make money, get revenue, get growth, right?
Yeah, because what I see a lot of times happening is people don't start their abandoned cart emails because they want their emails to look a certain way, dude. And then they postpone this for 6 months.
That's a luxury, yeah.
It's just a waste of opportunity, because you'll end up recovering those cards otherwise, and you're too anal about brand too early in your journey is a waste of time in practical terms, and that's what I wanted to validate from your thought process.
Absolutely.
So, and you said that this is decision-making agility has to retain, and then the brand side of things has to kick in at the mid stage.
Yeah.
What else from a people perspective? You said that you've already got your top management sorted, the key management personnel. In terms of how this was designed, that these are the skills needed on the table. Was it a conscious choice that we want a new economy Myntra guy to come on board, or somebody like that? Or it so happened because you were in conversation and you hang along? Because you're titled as COO, you're doing digital marketing, probably not all of it you've done before. How does that mapping happen on skills versus bringing the first team members on board?
Yeah. So I think maybe a lot of the leadership team has been created through maybe Ami and Shrey got 1 or 2 folks, and then through referrals, right? So because they recruited 2 or 3 very, very senior guys in the industry. So like Anuj, who is the CRO. So he was the growth officer at Myntra, and he brought the whole Myntra ecosystem in there, right? So the VP D2C is a ex-Myntra guy. The whole D2C team is a ex-Myntra guy. And then through referrals and all that, so we have a head of marketing who comes from Cipla, but through a referral connect from my side, right? So that's how a lot of these teams, because they build very senior, or they got very senior people from the top.
This is interesting, right? Yeah. The allocation of capital, which is ultimately a finite number.
Yeah.
Instead of deploying all that in aggressive marketing plays upfront, he chose to, or you guys chose to invest in the team upfront, and you kind of went a little overboard from the percentage of revenue. But that's now playing out interestingly.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to say that if you have, So far it looks good, right? All the signs
Yeah.
look good.
So at
But,
least in the leadership team, touchwood, yeah, we don't have attrition.
So what I'm curious about is, would it be fair to say that as a business, let's say you raise a certain amount of beyond seed level funding, to allocate that to building meaningful level of leadership instead of over allocating on a very aggressive month on month growth,
Yeah.
because you'll have to take money away from somewhere to put it somewhere.
Yeah. So I would not tell it as a formula,
Sure.
but Kapiva has done it, and I can see definite merit in doing it. Right, and if I have to make a choice again, I would do it, right? But I'm pretty sure there are enough examples which are contrary to it, right?
Sure.
So there is a 10 people frugal team, right, with kids just out of schools or right. They run the business and the brain is only the founders, right? And they have done exceptionally well. They get cited as examples of frugality, right? And that's perfectly fine. It's your choice.
No, so frugality, I'm not even saying that you necessarily invest in people, but all I'm saying is when you have the money to allocate, and that's where you're choosing between spending it on Google Ads versus Facebook to drive that month-on-month growth, vis-a-vis saying that, okay, I understand I have a certain runway to achieve with this money, so I can only deploy X amount of capital per month, might be wiser to go over-index on the team and the that side, because that might just aid your runway to get longer because of the nature of operation. You operate a little more efficiently because of that team meeting ready, right? And that goes a lot longer in terms of your sustainable business growth, so to speak. How does competition distract you? Given that you're choosing to grow at a certain, I would say, limited pace, you're not growing like crazy. People have grown 5x, 10x. You've chosen to grow at 2x in some sense. So does competition affect? How does it affect? How do you deal with it? Because a lot of founders end up treating that as a source of decision making. That they're doing it, we have to do it, or else we'll not grow. How do you deal with this?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say we have achieved nirvana on that. So it almost every day gets discussed, oh, usne ye kar diya hai, right? So the whole FOMO of somebody is doing it and hence we should be doing it. So that always exists. And there are a lot of things which we have done because somebody else has done better than us, right? So we do replicate it, and there are a lot of things which we have done very successfully and which we see people replicating it. And I think that's like one of the examples is we started running because we are a healthcare brand, so a very strong credentialing is required, right? And we started doing in-shots ad because that's news which consumers are consuming, okay, assuming that it's organic content, right? And that's where the product was very organically in the news format integrated, though there is a discovery of this active and got in Ayurvedic ingredient and juice, and which has helped people and all that, right? So which we were one of the pioneers in.
But is in-shots native advertising available, is it?
Yeah.
Or is this via Google Discovery?
No, native advertising.
Wow, how many? I mean, this is the third channel beyond Google and Facebook then.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So actually
they have large distribution, right?
Large depends on your scale, but
of course.
Right, we have now spent quite a lot of money on in-shots.
Yeah, which would then mean, at least from a discovery perspective and ROI perspective, you see some value.
Definite ROI value, obviously not as scalable as Google and Facebook.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
No, but there is enough segmentation and targeting capability available.
No,
nothing. Not much.
No. Okay. So, but the way consumers, I think there is no segmentation and targeting available. But right TG for us, and again, it may vary.
Sure.
So, right TG for us is available. And right TG by mean right age group, English speaking people who have a propensity to pay that amount, online shoppers and all. So that's the right TG, who are consuming content in a way we want, right? So it's a healthcare where credentialing is very important. So for example, when we ran all these diabetes, BP, hair, all these ads worked phenomenally well. When we did a hair oil, which is more of a personal care topical kind of thing, it didn't work well, right? Because that's not the platform where people consume that kind of information. Right. So that we have our learning experience, but for the categories where it works, and we have learned after doing a few examples, its ROI is much better than Google and Facebook. But obviously it's not scalable to that extent, right? So after some time it will plateau.
Would it also have to mean that the land grab hasn't exactly happened and there are not so many people chasing those impressions yet? Which
maybe,
might change,
and I think
today.
that's part of, right? So again, I'm sure and now I see every day now if you go and notice in-shots, there you will find 2-3 ads every day, right?
Yeah,
but,
so you got there early, which means you got the benefit.
So, but I think that's part of the discovery, that are you able to crack a model beyond the typical Facebook and Google, which to some extent will pay for your good ROAS growth, right? Now, after some time, it will plateau and all that. But if you crack that, I think nothing like it. Right
Are
now,
there any other places like this one? Is there a Chingari or whatever in play as well?
so we haven't tried it, but I'm sure there are people who have tried it, right? And maybe platforms and all. Some people have cracked the offline business model, right? Store in store kiosk, and that's very profitable for them. I hear some people have a business model where one city you go and bombard with advertising, and that pays out for them, right? So at Uniqlo, again, it was part of a discovery. So actually, this in shorts I brought from Uniqlo. There, one of the other things, again, it's part of experimentation, nothing that we knew beforehand. So newspapers used to work very well, right? So that was the highest ROI channel where weekly, because it was one city only, Delhi. So in the city supplement, which was cost effective for us. In the regions where, or because even these city supplements have North Delhi version and South Delhi version and all that. So it's a micro targeted whatever in the vicinity of the store, and that used to pay out very well, and we would do every fortnightly one newspaper ad. Right. So again, it's up to us in our respective categories. What is that go beyond Google and Facebook that we can crack, right? And Google and Facebook as well, we have realized that this again, learning may be different for everyone, right? So this typical conversion campaign static led, at least it hasn't worked for us, right? क्योंकि वो इतना simple है कि thousands of brands are trying that, and enough burning their money, and that's why the CPCs and all are very high. But you need to find a way to make that work, right? And again, there are different models, people who have run models in terms of just video viewing to qualify a certain audience and then retargeting them, right? And there are a bunch of other models which different brands have cracked what works for them, right?
Awesome. I realize that I won't have a lot of time at hand, but maybe I'll just ask one last question about the celebrity endorsement piece. I think a lot of brands at various life stages do that. Some people do it really early. So I think there's a brand called Beko that we work with, and they've gotten VMers, I think, as an investor as well as a brand endorsement. You guys have also done that.
Yeah.
In what stage did you do this? What did you expect will come out of it? Did it work for you in some sense, or how would you advise younger brands to consider this as a route?
Yeah. So again, it also depends on your stage and appetite, right? And the brand fit, right? So I think that's the other key element that you need to consider. Now, be ready that that's the piece of money can also fall flat, right? And I've heard enough stories where because the main use of celebrity is we got a celebrity, Malaika Arora, because there was a fitment on health and wellness and good social media following and all that. But now what I've realized is main leverage of celebrity happens when you do a brand advertising, right? And again, I'm adding the caveat, different people may have different experience, right? So in that big advertising, the risk is very high. So one big piece of advertisement you will create, you will take 3-4 months, spend enough money, and anyways, one thumb rule is what you spend in creating that ad, spend at least 5x in making sure that ad reaches the people, right? So that's a thumb rule. So if you have that money, and that money can go waste, right? Fortunately for us, it worked well. We saw a significant uptick in brand awareness and equity levels post that advertising.
But this is measured how?
Consumer tracks. So we do every 6 months we do a consumer track. How many among our TG, right? So how many people are aware of the brand, considering the brand, trying the brand?
Agency online tools. What is the mechanism to get this done?
So we have there are a bunch of agencies which
Sure.
do it, right? So we use an agency, Crown It. So every 6 months we do that track so that the equities and awareness are moving in the right direction. So there was a big jump of we were 30% people knew us. Then post this campaign, 40% people knew us. So that's a huge move in the needle, right? But because it's a single piece of asset, right? Unlike say Facebook advertising, where a static, if it doesn't work well, you change it, right? And almost at no cost, right? Here you may spend a couple of crores doing that whole campaign and all that, and it may go waste. So do you have that appetite and money in the bank? If it works well, great, take that risk, right? So, but be ready for the consequence on the other side.
Awesome. Any questions? I'm sure there'll be few, but we have time for a couple, I guess.
Sorry, I had a question. So with the growing CACs on the primary platforms that you mentioned, Facebook and Google, what other platforms are there? InShots is one that you mentioned. I've seen Kapiva ads, where I think they also mentioned powered by Kapiva.
Yeah, which is mandatory. So that's their form of it's an advertisement. Yeah.
Yeah. So what other platforms are available? I think there are a few like Ankur also mentioned that there's Chingari and ShareChat.
Yeah.
But are they effective enough like Google and Facebook?
Yeah, I don't know. Frankly, we haven't tried that. But what we have, so in shorts was the starting point that again for us, if it's a medium where consumer is consuming that for an information, right, it works. With that premise, we expanded in shorts to Times of India digital edition, then local Dainik Bhaskar, Hindustan, and all that. We expanded regional language, and there were hits and misses. Like Times of India has bunch of languages, their whole network. So we figured out Marathi and Hindi works best for us. Right. So and that's where, because again it's these models are not as easy to scale as Google and Facebook, right? So those are the ones which we have tried. Apart from influencer marketing, which generally, and again there is a learning curve there as well, right? So that works reasonably well. Yeah, and then typical even Facebook and Google, as I talked, right? So there is a particular way you need to talk and create your funnel that makes it work. There is a significant impact on AOV, which has on the ROAS, right? And that piece again, if you go on Kapiva website, any of the brand pages, so there is a certain way on we enable the consumer to move on higher AOV, right? That we have tried. Ki okay, CAC kam ho, AOV kam ho, is that a better model or a high AOV?
Is that like cross-selling and upselling or?
No, so currently, so cross-selling, upselling comes post that, post purchase, which anyways justifies the LTV, right? But even from first sale standpoint, we have realized that even if the CAC goes slightly higher, but AOV pays out for it, right? So what we have realized that AOV and CAC, if you plot a graph, AOV jitna बढ़ाते जाओगे, so the CAC doesn't increase in the same proportion, right? So then the ROAS equation becomes better.
And if I may ask,
Sure.
how do you guys do it?
Sorry?
How do you guys do it at the first sale itself?
How?
Increasing the AOVs.
Check out the website.
Check
I'm
the
guessing
website. I think that's very,
bundles seems to be
yeah.
one straight answer.
Yeah.
Subscriptions is the other answer. But yeah.
So
Yes, I
check the
might say.
website. I think there is, again, you need to think from a consumer standpoint. Why would the consumer purchase a higher basket size, right? So and then again, every brand will have a different way to communicate. If it's a fashion brand, maybe a complete look, right? For an Ayurvedic brand, we say that Ayurveda takes 3 months or 2 months to make an impact, right? So we are not ek bar istemal karo, you will get rid of whatever problem. So if the consumer is coming and trusting us, okay, I'll solve their problem, and we are explicitly communicating it, okay, you need to use us for 2 months, and then rightly incentivizing that 2-month purchase. That's how it has worked. Please.
Hi, I'm Seher. So 85% of our business comes directly from our own website, and we're currently trying to navigate the world of marketplaces. I guess you said something really interesting, that your product is different on Amazon versus your own website. What do you mean by that?
Sure. So
proposition, not product, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So product is same.
Yeah.
Okay. The way the product is delivered or the way the consumer gets to the product,
Yeah.
and what happens post the consumer buys that product, that is different, right? So
are you bundling it differently?
So yeah, that's what I elaborated. So for example, again, let's take a example of there is a Skin Glow Mix, which is a ingestible skincare supplement, right? The same product is available on Amazon, Nykaa, and D2C website, right? On D2C website, you can answer a bunch of questions, and then you would be led to that product or a combination of products. So I think that's what makes it different. And post purchasing that product, a whole consumer engagement journey starts, which is what will make it more effective to get the result.
I get the engagement piece.
Yeah,
I get the communication after, and like the tension, touch point.
Products are same.
But yeah.
Or broadly same.
Okay.
Mostly same. Yeah. Sorry, just one thing to add which I remembered. So again, there may be certain nuances like women's hormonal health, right? So it's one of the categories we play in, PCOS and all that. Now that doesn't have a marketplace volume itself, right? So the play is only D2C. Right, so those kind of nuances may be there. Some other big, say, commoditized products, right? So amla juice, aloe vera juice, rose water, and all that, which have huge categories in Amazon. Okay, but if we try to bring someone on D2C website for a amla juice, which is like 100 players would be advertising and nobody cares, right? So there the CAC will never pay off. So we don't advertise, and they are very tiny, so available but very tiny.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you.
Shantanu, I just wanted to zoom in on this, right, when you mentioned the D2C discovery. Now, generally there are two sides of the thought process. One is you keep the journey very straightforward. Don't distract the user or consumer in the journey. Just let them look at the product immediately. One click check out what Amazon does. And another thing that you mentioned, you let them ask questions and discover it and then buy it. Does it work out well for you? Have you guys A/B tested and said that this is actually giving better conversions than a one click?
Yeah. So I'll reinforce your point. What I said is, irrespective, try to make the consumer journey as easy as possible. Right. I think that's a given, huh? Because if you make the journey complicated, then
Drop-offs.
drop-offs will happen. Okay. Now that is one facet of it. The other facet which I said is make sure your D2C is differentiated from marketplaces. Right. Now you need to figure out what's your overlap.
Good, bad.
Right. So, or overlap between ki consumer journey as easy and differentiated D2C proposition. Our sweet spot, this is what I arrived. You may not need to do it, right? So please keep it straightforward as much as possible, right? Like if you go to minimalist website, I think I've heard those guys do most of their business from D2C, right? It's a simple personal care brand, but the whole discovery of the product, right? The way they have bunched therapies and all, if you go on minimalist, I actually visited 4 or 5 months back. I don't know if it has changed. But that's very easy to find your product. A simple one click and only. They don't ask questions and all that. But that's their sweet spot that they have cracked, right? Which on Amazon, you need to know the product which you want to buy. Only then you can buy that 2% salicylic acid and all that, right? Which normal consumer may not know. So that they make it very easy on their website to discover. And that may be a differentiation for them.
I just wanted to ask this, that what we have seen in past in terms of successes in F&B category, we have seen that after a point of time, online does not scale up and people go to offline in a big way, and that's the only way to scale up. So at Kapiva, how do you guys think of it? Like even after, let's say, D2C and doing on marketplaces, what you have seen, 80-85% sales come via offline channels at a very good scale. So do you think D2C scales up for food and beverage companies so much?
Yeah. So again, I will not put a blanket food and beverage company, because what I can share is our experience as a healthcare company, or primarily a healthcare company. So again, our more than 80% business comes online, right? As of now, we are having a very healthy growth month on month, right? So I think that's the good part. If you ask my judgment, maybe once we get to say 200-300 crore ARR, that would be kind of plateauing the growth significantly, right? But that number may change every year, right? So if you are talking in next 2 year horizon, maybe that number is 200-300 crore. Maybe 5 year horizon, that number will increase, because the whole people who are online shoppers and all that changes, right? Now coming to that offline part, right? So only 3-4 months back, we have started to seriously look at the offline business, right? Because again, we are seeing a bunch of the brands who are bigger than us doing that, right? But now what we are realizing, again, that will be part of learning experience, and you will read enough horror stories on offline. So from enough number of people, everything works on credit, or most of the brands work on credit, but maal chala gaya, paisa nahi aaya, right? So enough horror stories on the biggest brands, celebrated brands, right? So and you will see their founders talking, right? So you need to make a cautious approach on how you want to play it out. What we have realized, again, very specific to us, because we are a healthcare and which needs a lot more education, right? just putting the product in an offline store may not work. Right. So you need to have certain enabler to move the product off the shelf, because ultimately that's the test, right? You can dump anything, but it has to move to the consumer, or the consumer needs to pick it up, right? Now the consumer can pick it up only for 2 or 3 reasons, right? Either consumer knows your brand, where there may be a question on, is your media for the right consumer, so that she's going to the right store, right? If your distribution goes beyond your current online, because we are only advertising online, right? So if your distribution goes beyond your online, then it is bound to fail, right? Offtake will not happen, money will not come back and all that, right? So that is one. So is the consumer aware, and then she goes and asks for or picks the product, right? Second is, you can incentivize the retailer to push your product. That may happen in certain categories, not every category. A lot of categories are, oh, I don't listen to retailer. If I have to buy a hair oil or a shampoo, I go and I have to buy a Pantene or a Dove or whatever. It doesn't matter what the retailer says. But in many categories, retailer can have a big say. You can incentivize the retailer to do that, right? So that's the second way. Third is, you put a enabler in between, right? So you put this store promoter, or try it with education tools on shelf and all that. Not so easy, but something enabler that consumer is educated. Oh, there is a, because most of our products at least are very unique, right? So there is a juice which can help you lose weight, right? This is a skin ingestible which is like an anti-aging cream, right? But it's from within and more long lasting and from the roots and all that, right? But somebody needs to educate that, right? Or nudge that. So one of those need to be true for the offline to make sense. That may vary in your category. Yeah. So
I have a question. When you talk, like now when you spoke about enabling, or keeping the customers informed, again talking about cross-selling, upselling, how important do you think, especially in your line of business, when you say that it's a healthcare brand, how important do you think community building comes into play? I mean, I think like retailers giving out information is one thing, but building a community amongst people going through the same issue as I am, say diabetes. I have not only me, but I have 10 other people telling that, like you also said about, emailing your customers that, you follow this and you'll get through this. But coming through like a similar kind of people kind of adds more impact than like, the brand itself telling that, I've been doing this, or those kind of things. So how important do you think, or do you actually feel the need of community building, at least in today's day and generation, where I know that today if I'm buying a brand, or today if I'm like I follow an issue or something, I know that I would listen to 10 other people what they have to say. Why am I choosing your brand than asking anyone, I mean,
sure.
reviews or anything.
Yeah. So I would say, if you have a community, or if you are able to create that community, we have been able to crack that model of creating that community. I think it's one of the best things, or easiest to acquire new consumer, upsell, cross-sell products and all that. That is possible. Like Sugar has a very big community. It's doing a phenomenal job in terms of community and educating and all that. And I think, I don't know, last I saw they have 3-4 million followers and all on social. And there may be, social is one way of community building. There may be other ways of community building, right? We haven't personally been able to crack community building, because maybe we were purists. We will not spend money to build the community, but we have been very deliberate on the type of content that we will post within that community. The community may be 100 or 1,000 right now, but they are very well engaged people. So very well engaged. When we run Facebook ads, we have seen that the ROI that comes from the people who follow us is significantly higher than the people who are outside, right? But that's only a certain set of people. So the challenge is how or whether you will be able to build that community. The question is not whether the community will pay out or not.
Yeah, I mean, I just like to, I think community building also comes from like a company standpoint. Like today, I mean, when you say you don't want to invest in that.
Not don't want to.
And
We
then, I mean,
tried, haven't been
yeah,
very
I mean,
successful.
it also does require a lot of investment or a lot of engagement. It's not only in terms of say financials, but also in terms of different platforms. Like you said, like you have like a return because of your Facebook advertisement.
Yeah.
Like I think kind of comes through within the company.
Yeah.
than
So there is a lot of, like, if you go on Kapiva's Instagram handle, so we get very good feedback on the content, right? And even people know, I saw your content, it's very educational, very good, I didn't know about it, right? So a lot of very interesting content is there. So should you drink water in copper vessel, right? Now this is a question most of us have, right? Does drinking lemon water in the morning help you reduce your weight, right? So very interesting content, very engaged audience. But maybe we were purist, we will not put money to promote that content, and we said okay, organic. And Facebook doesn't want to increase anybody's community organically, right? Otherwise, how does Facebook make money? So yeah, there may be people who have cracked that model, right? So I think they can better educate on how. But I can definitely say, people who are in the community work very well. So word of mouth and all that, right? So that works very well.
So I had one more question.
Sure.
I wanted to know what is your formula for, or what's worked for you for trust building. With our company, what we've seen is to get that customer try our products for the first time, especially when when in the F&B industry, and what matters is how authentic the taste is of our products. What we've seen as a challenge is how do we get them to trust us once, and then probably further on build on how can we get them to our website again. And I think we sort of share a similar space there, because in healthcare industry as well, that trust building and that for the to let the customer try out the product for the first time is a bigger challenge, I feel, than getting them back.
Yeah.
So what's worked for you, what's not worked for you?
Yeah. So I think the biggest drive, so I would put in two ways, right? So one of the biggest drivers in trust is or probably the biggest driver is the product, right? So if the consumer can experience that superiority versus the alternate option that she has, and distinct, visible, noticeable superiority, right? That this product is better than anything that I have ever experienced. That is the biggest builder of trust, right? Then trust, second element of trust is the whole mechanical piece, especially on D2C, and that's more relevant on how do you address consumers' concerns once she has an issue or a gap in terms of her expectation or experience, right? So I'll give you two different examples on this whole consumer experience piece, right? So at Uniqlo, when I was there, and that was a Japanese company where again consumer experience was paramount. Every day morning meeting, first topic to be discussed, right? And different companies have morning meeting. Okay, what's the yesterday's revenue and all that, right? First thing, morning meeting, top management, CEO, and everyone sits. What are the consumer complaints? What is the summary? Qualitatively, every single complaint would be discussed, and maybe we were at that scale that we could discuss. Every single complaint was discussed with an action item on it, so that over a period of time, that complaint or those type of complaints stop reducing, right? Here even at Kapiva, we have instituted something which we called Golden Hour, where the whole management team every week comes and sits and for an hour and a half listens through the worst consumer communication to the customer service center, where the consumer is, okay, this is bad, that is bad, and all that, and we listen, and what are the corrective steps that we can take to address that, right? So I think that's where the whole trust building on the product, which I said is number one
But
paramount
I think
important.
to zoom into this, maybe we were talking about the first transaction, and this is before the product gets experience. In their case, somebody could still pick up and taste it the moment it arrives. In your
Yeah.
case, the moment of truth would probably come 2 months later.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if I'm
So
committing a certain...
efficacy is one, but it could be your delivery is delayed, your packaging was damaged. Last time I got a better product, this time it didn't come, right? So those kind of
Would you be
complaints
using
may
a lot of testimonials or whatever in your first user experience?
Absolutely. So if
Is
you
that
again, you can, everyone can see what people are
Yeah.
advertising. So there are broadly two types of creatives which have worked very well for us. One is doctor credentialing, and second is consumer testimonials. Right. So consumer testimonial.
In your
works.
case, I would imagine that would be the biggest winner, right? If I taste the product and I have a video of that shot and that's on your
Yeah.
website, might just give that
We're
confidence.
still trying to figure that out, because we're doing some sort of A/B testing. If the credentials are working out more, or more of storytelling, that we give them that nostalgia of how the food felt like when they were at home. So I think we're still because ours is more of authentic reach.
Of course.
Right? So
And again, there is no magic formula. You need to try out
Yeah.
few things, and you will
In
crack
terms of
something.
Facebook ads, I think the testimonials have worked really well for us.
Same. So
So on that
testimonial
note,
works best
maybe
for us.
thank you so much for the last bunch of interactions. Thank you, Shantanu, for making it
Thank
here,
you.
and we'll